It starts with recognition, not the recognition of the narcissist, not the recognition of their charm or their ability to convince the world that everything is fine, but the recognition of yourself, of your own feelings, your own pain, and the reality of what happened. Often, when someone has been hurt by a narcissist, there is a deep internal pressure to minimize the experience. It wasn't that bad. You might tell yourself, I should just let it go, I should forgive, I should move on. But these statements, while well-intentioned, often serve as a mask over the wound. The truth is, acknowledging your hurt is not indulgence. It is not weakness. It is the first courageous act of reclaiming your life. Pain has a language. It speaks in sleepless nights, in doubt, that whispers through your mind, in moments when you question your worth, your value, your very sense of self. And when the source of that pain is someone skilled in manipulation, someone who has systematically undermined your reality, it becomes even more insidious. You are left doubting what happened, questioning if you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too flawed. And here is the subtle cruelty of narcissistic abuse. It trains you to silence your own truth, to erase your own experience in the service of another's ego. But healing cannot begin in silence. Healing begins in truth. Acknowledging the hurt means giving yourself permission to feel without judgment. It is allowing the sadness, the anger, the confusion, and even the shame to surface. These emotions are not a reflection of weakness. They are evidence of life, of connection, of having given yourself fully to someone, and having given yourself fully to someone, and having had that trust betrayed. To dismiss these feelings is to deny the impact of your own life, and yet, so many of us have been taught, through the subtle lessons of culture, family, and society, that suffering must be endured quietly, that pain must be masked, that to feel deeply is somehow dangerous. But it is in feeling, in fully acknowledging, that we reclaim our humanity. The process is not neat. It is not linear. One day you may feel anger. The next day you may feel grief. Sometimes it comes in unexpected waves, a memory triggered by a song, a place, a scent, and it may feel as if the wound had never been addressed at all. This is natural. This is normal. Healing is not a tidy timeline. It is a journey of returning to yourself, step by step, with compassion, with patience, with persistence. And each acknowledgement of your hurt is a step forward. Each moment where you say, yes, that hurt me, is a moment where you assert your reality over the distortion created by someone else. What makes acknowledgement so powerful is that it serves as a foundation for everything else. Without it, we are vulnerable to the lingering effects of trauma, doubt, anxiety, hypervigilance, and the subtle erosion of self-esteem. Without acknowledgement, we may unconsciously carry forward the narcissist's narrative, believing that their perception defines our worth. Recognition of the hurt is a form of resistance. It is an act of reclaiming the truth of your life. It is saying, I see what happened. I felt it. It matters. And in that simple act, we disrupt the quiet tyranny of manipulation and begin to regain our own power. It is important to also recognize the courage required to acknowledge hurt. There is a part of us that wants to protect ourselves from the intensity of pain, that wants to shield the heart from what feels unbearable. But avoidance only prolongs suffering. True courage is not the absence of fear or pain. It is the willingness to look directly at it. When we face the hurt, we honor our experience, and in doing so, we plant the seeds for true recovery. Each tear, each trembling breath, each whispered admission of pain is a form of liberation. Each acknowledgement chips away at the invisible chains left by the narcissist. Many people fear that by acknowledging their hurt, they are giving the narcissist power. But the paradox is that it is only in denial that the narcissist's influence persists. When we name the hurt, we claim ownership of it. We hold it in our hands, examine it, understand it, and place it within the context of our own lives, rather than letting it define us unconsciously. Acknowledgement transforms suffering from something external imposed upon us into something internally imposed upon us, into something internal we can manage, integrate, and ultimately transcend. And while the journey of acknowledgement is deeply personal, it is also a bridge toward empathy, for ourselves and for others. When we recognize the depth of our own hurt, we begin to see the subtle ways in which human fragility manifests everywhere. We develop a sharper sense of boundaries, a keener awareness of red flags, and a more profound understanding of the need for compassion, not to excuse abuse, but to navigate the complexity of human behavior with clarity and integrity. It is here, in this space of awareness, that we begin to reconstruct a life unshackled from the narcissist's distortions. Acknowledgement is also a prelude to empowerment. Once we recognize what was done to us, we are better equipped to act, not out of revenge, but out of wisdom and self-preservation. Boundaries become clear. Choices become deliberate. And in that clarity, we reclaim the most important thing the narcissist sought to take from us: our sense of self. By naming our pain, by owning it, we refuse to carry it silently, and we prevent it from dictating the trajectory of our lives. So let us not shy away from what is uncomfortable. Let us not soften the edges of our experiences to make others more comfortable. Let us stand fully in the truth of what happened, feel it deeply, and honor it unflinchingly. In this act, we are not only healing, we are growing stronger. The hurt is real, and the acknowledgement of it is the first declaration that we will no longer allow another's actions to define our existence. Because when we finally see the hurt for what it is, when we allow ourselves to feel it fully, when we name it, we confront a simple yet profound truth. The narcissist can inflict damage, but they cannot steal our essence. Our life, our spirit, and our capacity to love and thrive remain ours, untouched by the distortions of someone else. And that is a power they can never take. So start there. Look at the wound. Speak its name. Feel it. And in that acknowledgement, take the first step toward freedom. You are hurt. Yes. But you are not broken. You are beginning. Once you begin to acknowledge the hurt, the next layer of understanding reveals itself: the illusion of control. Narcissists are masters at creating the appearance of control, at convincing not only themselves but everyone around them that they are in command of reality. They are skilled at projecting certainty, at presenting a life that seems orderly, flawless, and enviable. And yet, this control is always an illusion. It is a fragile construct built up on fear, manipulation, and the denial of their own inner emptiness. What they seek is not genuine mastery or growth, but the reassurance that they can bend the world, and more importantly, other people, to their will. This is what makes interacting with a narcissist so disorienting. They create a reality that seems coherent to everyone except the person they are controlling, and often, that person is you. You may find yourself questioning your own perceptions, doubting your instincts, or second-guessing the validity of your emotions. You wonder if you are overreacting, if you are too sensitive, or somehow you are responsible for the chaos that surrounds you. This is not your fault. It is a deliberate design, a pattern of psychological manipulation that keeps you tethered to the narcissist's narrative while obscuring the truth. And therein lies the paradox. While the narcissist appears to hold all the power, their control is never complete. Their power is dependent upon your compliance, upon your silence, upon your willingness to live within the confines of their reality. Once you begin to step outside of that construct, to trust your own perceptions, to see clearly what has been happening, the illusion begins to crumble. Their sense of control is not absolute. It is fragile, contingent, and ultimately unsustainable. They cannot escape the fact that their version of reality only exists as long as you allow it to. The illusion of control extends beyond just interpersonal manipulation. Narcissists often attempt to control the way you feel, the way you think, even the way you express yourself. They tell subtle lies, omit critical truths, and create stories in which you are somehow the problem. They will claim authority over your experiences, as if your memories, your interpretations, your emotions are theirs to dictate. But here is the truth: no one can control your be. Here is the truth. Inner life except you, your thoughts, your feelings, your reflections are yours to govern. Recognizing this is a profound moment of liberation. The moment when you see the narcissist not as an all-powerful force, but as a human being, flawed, fearful, and desperately seeking validation. It is important to understand that narcissistic control is rooted in fear. The narcissist fears exposure, vulnerability, and the acknowledgement of their own limitations. The more they attempt to control, the more fragile their internal structure becomes. What appears as dominance or certainty is often a thin veil over insecurity and self-loathing. When we internalize this understanding, we can approach the situation with clarity. We stop being caught up in their illusions, and we begin to see them as they are, rather than as we are told to believe they are. Once you see through the illusion, the way forward becomes clearer. You realize that you do not need to fight to wrest control from them, because they never truly had it in the first place. What they were holding was a borrowed sense of authority, an artificial dominance over your responses, your emotions, and your perceptions. By reclaiming your own narrative, by standing firm in the reality of your own experience, you render their control powerless. They may try to resist, to confuse, to intimidate, but you now carry the clarity that they cannot impose their version of reality upon you without your consent. Stepping out of this illusion also requires patience and practice. For years, you may have been conditioned to doubt yourself, to second-guess your instincts, to defer to the narcissist version of reality. Undoing this conditioning is not instantaneous. It requires consistent reflection, the reaffirmation of your own perceptions, and a commitment to trust yourself above all else. This is not arrogance. It is a form of self above all else. Respect, a declaration that your mind and your experience belong to you alone. There is another layer here that is easy to overlook. The narcissist's attempts at control are often attempts to avoid confronting their own reality. They create rules, boundaries, and narratives not only to dominate you, but also to shield themselves from the consequences of their actions. Their obsession with control is a mirror of their fear of accountability, and this is an essential truth. While you have been focused on their manipulation, they have been struggling with a fundamental insecurity that they cannot reconcile. By stepping outside their influence, by trusting your own awareness, you recognize that the control they sought over you was always a projection of their inner chaos. This understanding does more than free you. It transforms the way you see the world. You begin to notice that control itself is a fragile concept, not a measure of true strength. Real strength lies in self-awareness, in resilience, in the capacity to feel deeply without being dictated by another. Real freedom is not about controlling others. It is about reclaiming control over your own mind, your own choices, and your own life. And when you reach this point, the narcissist's influence diminishes naturally. Their attempts at manipulation lose potency because you are no longer operating in the framework they designed. So the path forward is both subtle and profound. You do not need to argue endlessly, justify yourself, or prove your perceptions to them. You simply need to observe, acknowledge, and trust what you know to be true. You need to feel the discomfort of what they try to impose, and then release it. You need to recognize the courage it takes to see through the illusion, to disentangle yourself from the psychological webs that were carefully woven. And in this recognition, you reclaim your dignity, your peace, and your power. Ultimately, seeing the narcissist's control as an illusion is a liberating act. It transforms the narrative from one of victimhood to one of sovereignty. It reveals the truth that no one can impose reality upon you unless you allow it. It shows you that your own mind is the ultimate sanctuary, untouchable, inviolable, and free. And it sets the stage for the next step in your healing, the conscious choice to live beyond their influence, to grow, to thrive, and to build a life that no one, not even the narcissist, can dictate. Because once you see clearly, you understand that the real power has always been within you, and that realization is irreversible. Their control was never real. But your freedom is. Once we begin to see through the illusions, to reclaim our own perception, we encounter another truth that is both simple and profound. The weight of their actions. Narcissists leave traces, indelible marks, not just on those they touch, but on themselves even if they refuse to acknowledge it. Their choices, their manipulations, their betrayals carry consequences that ripple far beyond the immediate moment. And these consequences are not always visible, not always obvious, but they exist as inescapable as gravity. To understand this is to understand the moral and emotional architecture of life, where every action has an imprint and every manipulation carries a weight. When someone has deliberately caused harm, the immediate attention often focuses on the victim, and rightly so. The pain, the disruption, the confusion that follows is real, tangible, and deeply human. But the other side of the coin, which is often overlooked, is that the perpetrator cannot escape entirely the truth of what they have done. Even if they avoid external accountability, even if the world does not recognize the depth of their harm, their actions leave a mark. Internally, in subtle and insidious ways. They are never fully free from the consequences of the choices they made. This is not about vengeance. It is about natural law, the way life measures itself, the way reality maintains balance. Narcissists often believe that their manipulation, their lies and their betrayals allow them to walk untouched through life. They believe that if they can maintain a certain image, if they can charm or intimidate, then nothing that truly matters will ever catch up with them. But this belief is an illusion. No matter how carefully they orchestrate perception, no matter how many stories they tell, there is an undercurrent they cannot escape. The knowledge of what they have done, the subtle guilt or shame, the unconscious recognition of harm caused to another human being. Even if it is buried, even if it is denied, it exists. The weight of their actions lives inside them, shaping their experiences in ways they often do not consciously see. This is the paradox of narcissistic behavior. On the surface, they appear powerful, untouchable, unbothered. They may even seem to thrive in a world they have manipulated. But underneath, there is a tension, a dissonance. The more they attempt to control others, the more they must ignore or suppress the truth within themselves. They build walls of justification, rationalization, and projection. But these walls are never impermeable. The conscience, even when dulled, still registers the truth of actions taken and harm caused. This is the hidden weight, the quiet burden that accompanies every act of manipulation, every betrayal, every instance where someone else's life was devalued for their own gain. For the person who has been harmed, understanding this is liberating. It is not about condoning behavior or pretending that harm is inconsequential. It is about recognizing that the narcissist's apparent invulnerability is an illusion. Their freedom is not real. It is borrowed from the blindness of others. They are tethered to their own choices, constrained by the very actions they took to control and dominate. And this realization allows you, as the person who has been hurt, to release some of the lingering tension you may carry. You no longer need to chase vindication, approval, or acknowledgement, because you understand that consequences exist beyond what is immediately visible. Life itself carries the tally of actions, even if delayed. The weight of their actions also extends to the people around them, the witnesses, the enablers, and those who may be drawn into their orbit. The ripple effects of harm spread outward, creating patterns of distrust, confusion, and fear. But importantly, this also reveals an opportunity for growth, awareness, and resilience. By witnessing the consequences, by observing the cracks in the facade, we gain insight into human behavior, into the importance of integrity, empathy, and accountability. We learn to discern more clearly, to set firmer boundaries, to recognize the difference between appearances and reality. And in doing so, we reclaim our own agency in a world that may have seemed chaotic and unpredictable. One of the most profound aspects of understanding the weight of their actions is the recognition that time does not erase consequences. A narcissist may avoid immediate judgment, may succeed in deceiving others for a season, may even convince themselves that their actions have no lasting impact. But life has a remarkable way of catching up. Relationships strain, trust erodes, opportunities are lost, and internal tension accumulates. These are the subtle but real consequences of actions taken without regard for others. And for the person who has been hurt, this is not about waiting for revenge. It is about understanding that the universe in its own way maintains a form of balance. There is also a deeper, psychological dimension to this. Every action, every choice, leaves an imprint on the psyche. For the narcissist, the accumulation of actions that harm others creates a chronic internal dissonance, even if unacknowledged. The energy required to maintain lies, to project false confidence, to manipulate perception, is immense. It consumes attention, drains emotional reserves, and eventually manifests in patterns of anxiety, emptiness, and disconnection. Their apparent freedom is built on an enormous hidden cost, the very weight of the harm they caused, carried silently inside themselves. For you, as the person who has endured this, understanding this dynamic transforms your perspective. You no longer need to fear the narcissist's power, because you see that their strength is brittle, their control is fragile, and their freedom is illusory. Their ability to manipulate you, or to impact your life, is only as strong as your willingness to let it be. By reclaiming your own perception, by stepping fully into your truth, you release yourself from the ripple effects of their actions. You see clearly that the burden they carry is theirs, not yours. And this recognition brings a form of justice that requires no confrontation. The narcissist's inability to escape the weight of their own actions is inherent, built into the natural structure of life. You do not need to enforce it, to demand acknowledgement, or to orchestrate punishment. The consequences are already in motion, unfolding in ways that are often invisible but undeniable. Your role is simply to reclaim your own narrative, to heal your own wounds, and to walk forward, unburdened. Their weight does not become yours. Ultimately, understanding the weight of their actions allows you to rise above resentment, fear, and bitterness. You realize that the harm they caused, while real and significant, does not define you. It is not a permanent marker of your value or potential. And as you carry this clarity, you gain insight into the broader human condition, that every choice matters, that every act of cruelty or carelessness carries consequence, and that integrity and self-awareness are the true measures of freedom and strength. Because once you see it clearly, you understand something essential. The narcissist may have sought to control, deceive, and dominate, but they cannot escape the life they have shaped through their actions. Their weight is theirs alone, and in this recognition, you are free to live fully, without the burden of their choices, anchored instead in your own truth, resilience, and humanity. Their actions have weight, but your life is yours to carry, unshaken and whole. Once we begin to acknowledge the hurt and see through the illusions, a deeper truth emerges. Your growth becomes their regret. This is not about revenge or schadenfreude. It is about the profound, undeniable reality that while a narcissist seeks to diminish, control, and undermine, the resilience of your spirit cannot be taken from you. Every step you take toward self-awareness, every act of healing, every moment in which you reclaim your life, is a reminder to them of what they have lost. Your growth is not merely personal. It is a mirror reflecting the consequences of their actions back onto them, whether they consciously recognize it or not. Narcissists thrive on dependency. They seek to ensure that those around them remain vulnerable, uncertain, and compliant. They construct an elaborate system in which your attention, your energy, your emotions are constantly directed toward maintaining their narrative. And when you begin to step outside that system, to reclaim your agency, to flourish in ways they cannot control, it threatens the very foundation of the world they have built. Your independence, your self-worth, and your growth become silent proof of the opportunities they forfeited, the trust they broke, and the potential they tried to suppress. This process of growth begins quietly, It is not always dramatic or obvious, and it often goes unnoticed by the world, including by the narcissists themselves. It is the subtle reclaiming of your time, your attention, and your emotional energy. It is choosing to engage in relationships that nourish rather than deplete. It is the act of nurturing your own mind, body, and spirit, even in the face of doubt, fear, or past trauma. Each act of self-care, each moment of self-reflection, each choice to set a boundary is a quiet defiance of the narrative the narcissist tried to impose. And with each act, you are moving closer to the life they cannot touch. There is a unique power in this growth, because it is rooted in authenticity. The narcissist's influence is built on illusion, on control, and on the distortion of truth. Your growth, in contrast, is organic, earned, and undeniable. It is visible in your strength, your composure, and your clarity. It is evident in the way you approach life with intention, rather than reaction. The more you embrace your own truth, the more your growth becomes a living testament to the fact that what they sought to undermine cannot be destroyed. Your life moves forward resilient, vibrant, and real, while theirs remains tethered to the past, to manipulation, and to the hollowness of their self-serving actions. Perhaps the most challenging aspect of this process is understanding that their regret is not something you need to provoke. You do not need to seek acknowledgement, confrontation, or retribution. Their recognition of what they lost will come naturally, if at all, because your growth exists independently of their awareness. You do not grow for them. You do not heal for them. You grow for yourself, and in the natural unfolding of life, the contrast between your vitality and their emptiness becomes undeniable. This is the quiet, enduring impact of reclaiming your life. It demonstrates that the consequences of their actions extend beyond immediate circumstances, and that your spirit cannot be contained, manipulated, or broken. Growth is also about perspective. As you step into your own power, you begin to see the patterns that once bound you, and you understand the depth of your own resilience. You recognize that the choices you make now, grounded in clarity and self-respect, are a direct response to the experiences you endured. In this way, your growth transforms pain into insight, trauma into wisdom, and loss into opportunity. It is a radical reclamation of self, a testament to the fact that the human spirit is not defined by what happens to it, but by how it responds. And every moment in which you choose awareness, integrity, and healing is a reminder to the narcissist of what they forfeited when they sought to diminish you. There is also a profound lesson in the way growth amplifies personal freedom. Narcissists attempt to bind you through fear, guilt, and manipulation, but growth dissolves those bindings. The more you cultivate self-awareness, the more you affirm your autonomy. The more you affirm your autonomy, the more you experience life on your own terms. In every area where you reclaim your voice, your boundaries, your passions, and your joy, you assert independence in a manner that cannot be undone. Growth becomes both a shield and a declaration, an unspoken message that your life is no longer a reflection of their control. And while the narcissist may wish to rewrite history or diminish your experience, your forward momentum is proof that life moves in directions beyond their interference. Growth is also inherently liberating because it reconnects you with the parts of yourself that may have been suppressed. The creativity, curiosity, courage, and empathy that were once undermined or ignored begin to flourish. You rediscover the joy of authentic connection, of unhurried reflection, of genuine purpose. Each step you take in this direction reinforces the idea that while the narcissist attempted to confine you to their world, your life is not a replication of their fears. It is an expansion of your own potential. And in that expansion, their regret is unavoidable, because the very essence of your flourishing exists in contrast to their limitations. The growth you experience is cumulative. It is not a single moment of empowerment, but a continuum of choices that affirm your value, your dignity, and your agency. It manifests in the relationships you cultivate, in the goals you pursue, in the way you carry yourself with integrity and awareness. It manifests in the quiet confidence that comes from understanding that you are no longer defined by another's manipulations, and that you have the capacity to build a life aligned with your own principles. This is the enduring truth. Your life becomes evidence that the harm intended cannot suppress what is genuine, resilient, and alive within you. Finally, it is important to recognize the emotional satisfaction inherent in this growth. You do not seek it out of spite, but there is a natural sense of resolution that comes from knowing that you have not been broken. You have healed, you have learned, and you have advanced. And while the narcissist may continue to seek control or validation elsewhere, your growth remains unassailable. They cannot diminish it, they cannot erase it, and they cannot escape the reality that what they once devalued now shines through your life in ways they cannot replicate. Your growth is, therefore, a qui. Your growth is therefore a qui. That revolution. It is a lived truth, a living testament to resilience, and an irrefutable reminder that no one, regardless of their intentions or manipulations, can dictate the trajectory of your life. Every step forward, every moment of clarity, and every act of integrity serves as proof not only of your strength, but also of the natural consequences of their actions. Their regret exists not because you demand it, but because it is inevitable when a life is lived fully, authentically, and courageously in the face of betrayal. Your growth is unstoppable, and their regret is the shadow that follows. Breaking free is not a dramatic gesture or a single decisive moment. It is a process, a gradual reclamation of your mental and emotional space that unfolds over time. For those who have been entangled with a narcissist, the challenge is not only external, but profoundly internal. The manipulations, the gaslighting, the subtle erosion of your confidence leave residues that linger long after the relationship ends. These residues are invisible, yet powerful. They shape the way you think, the way you feel, the way you respond to the world. Breaking free begins with recognizing these internal chains and committing with courage to unshackle yourself. The first step in this liberation is awareness. You must become conscious of the ways in which the narcissist influence still lingers in your mind and emotions. Perhaps it is the voice that whispers self-doubt, the impulse to justify your feelings, or the compulsive urge to predict how others will perceive your actions. Perhaps it is the subtle anxiety that arises whenever you assert a boundary, or the lingering guilt that accompanies decisions made in your best interest. These are not flaws within you. They are the imprints left by manipulation. Naming them, observing them, and acknowledging them is the foundation for freedom. Awareness transforms what was once unconscious influence into something you can confront and navigate. Breaking free also requires boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are declarations of self-respect, of understanding that your time, energy, and emotions are yours alone. Establishing boundaries does not need to be dramatic or confrontational. It can be as simple as refusing to engage in conversations that feel manipulative, declining invitations that drain you, or asserting your right to make decisions without external interference. Each boundary is an act of reclaiming your mental and emotional territory. It signals both to yourself and to the world that your inner life is sacred and cannot be violated. And as these boundaries take root, you begin to experience a sense of agency that may have felt impossible when under the shadow of manipulation. Another critical aspect of breaking free is the release of guilt and shame. Narcissists are adept at instilling a sense of personal responsibility for their behavior, at making you feel complicit in the harm done. Letting go of this misplaced responsibility is essential. You are not accountable for their choices, their emotions, or their satisfaction. Freedom begins the moment you internalize this truth, that their actions, their manipulation, and their attempts at control reflect their character, not yours. Each time you release guilt and affirm your autonomy, you reclaim a piece of yourself that was previously entangled in their narrative. Breaking free is also about emotional literacy, learning to identify, experience, and process your own feelings without interference or judgment. When you have been subjected to narcissistic manipulation, Emotions can become confusing or muted, as you have learned to suppress or question your own responses. To break free, you must allow yourself to feel fully, to witness the sadness, cess, anger, fear, and even the lingering hope, without letting them define you. Emotional literacy is the skill of observing without being consumed, of experiencing without being paralyzed. In this practice, you strengthen your capacity for self-awareness and resilience, creating an inner environment in which the narcissist's influence cannot survive. Part of this process is learning to redirect attention. Narcissists demand focus. They thrive on controlling how your energy is spent. Breaking free involves reclaiming your attention and directing it towards self-care, growth, and activities that nourish rather than deplete. It may be creative pursuits, meaningful relationships, physical activity, meditation, or simply the quiet observation of your own thoughts. Every act of focus directed inward, rather than toward maintaining or interpreting their world, is an act of liberation. This is not trivial. Attention is currency, and reclaiming it shifts power back to you in profound ways. Forgiveness, if it is part of your path, is a delicate tool rather than a requirement. Forgiveness does not mean excusing behavior or minimizing harm. Instead, it is about releasing the emotional charge that keeps you tethered to the past. It is the conscious decision to stop carrying anger, resentment, or preoccupation with what happened, not for the narcissist, but for your own peace. This does not happen overnight. It is a process that unfolds as you cultivate awareness, boundaries, and emotional clarity. With each step, the past loses its grip, and you move further into freedom. Breaking free also demands patience and self-compassion. The process is rarely linear, and moments of doubt or relapse are natural. You may notice old patterns resurfacing, moments where self-doubt creeps back, or where the emotional impact of past manipulation returns unexpectedly. This is not failure, it is evident. See that healing is active and ongoing. Meeting yourself with kindness during these moments strengthens resilience and reinforces the mental and emotional freedom you are cultivating. Compassion toward yourself is as critical as boundaries against others. An often overlooked aspect of liberation is community. Isolation amplifies the narcissist's lingering influence, while connection with others, friends, family, therapists, or support groups, provides validation, perspective, and reinforcement. Others can mirror back your reality when it has been distorted, remind you of your value, and support your journey toward autonomy. While your freedom is ultimately personal, the presence of a trustworthy community accelerates the healing process and provides a sense of belonging that counters the loneliness narcissists often cultivate. As mental and emotional freedom grows, so too does clarity. You begin to recognize patterns of manipulation and control in others, not with judgment, but with discernment. You learn to trust your intuition, to respond rather than react, and to operate from a place of conscious choice, rather than unconscious habit. This clarity is transformative. It allows you to navigate life with integrity, to engage in relationships without fear or compulsion, and to embrace your own priorities without guilt. Every decision made from this place of clarity strengthens the mental and emotional structures you are rebuilding, and it reminds the narcissist, if they are paying attention, that their attempts at control are no longer operative. Ultimately, breaking free is not only a personal journey, it is an act of reclamation. You reclaim your mind, your emotions, your energy, and your life. You step out from under the weight of manipulation and reclaim your agency. And in doing so, you demonstrate an irrefutable truth. The narcissist's power is limited, their control is temporary, and their influence exists only insofar as you allow it. By freeing yourself mentally and emotionally, you are asserting your sovereignty in the most profound sense, creating a life that is resilient, autonomous, and aligned with your authentic self. The final truth is simple, yet powerful. You cannot erase the past, and the influence of the narcissist may linger for a time. But the process of breaking free ensures that this influence no longer dictates your reality. It transforms the residual impact of manipulation into a source of strength, clarity, and self-determination. Each moment of freedom, each boundary set, each choice made from awareness rather than reaction, is proof that your life is yours. The narcissist may have sought to control, but you have chosen liberation. Breaking free mentally and emotionally is not an act of defiance. It is an act of reclamation, and nothing can take it from you. Once you begin to break free mentally and emotionally, you face a deeper, more profound task: reclaiming your narrative. For too long, your story has been written by someone else, not with ink and pen, but with manipulation, distortion, and control. The narcissist has shaped your memories, reframed your experiences, and attempted to dictate the meaning of your life. Reclaiming your narrative is the courageous act of taking that pen back, of asserting that the story of your life belongs to you, and that no one else has the authority to define your worth, your identity, or your truth. When someone has been manipulated or gaslit, it is easy to begin doubting yourself. You start questioning your perception of events, wondering if you misremembered, if your feelings were too intense, or if your reactions were unreasonable. The narcissist's subtle tactics are designed to plant seeds of doubt so deeply that you begin to mistrust your own mind. Reclaiming your narrative starts with rejecting this internalized doubt. It is about affirming that your perspective, your feelings, and your memories are valid. They are real. They matter. By acknowledging this, you create a foundation of truth upon which the rest of your story can be rebuilt. Reclaiming your narrative also means examining the stories the narcissist has tried to impose on you. Perhaps they told you that you were too sensitive, that your ambitions were unnecessary, or that your worth depended on pleasing them. Perhaps they tried to convince you that your friends, family, or values were wrong, that your experiences were less valid than theirs. These narratives are false, constructed to maintain control, and they do not reflect reality. Recognizing them as such is an act of liberation. It allows you to sift through the distorted lens of manipulation and see your life as it truly is. This process requires courage because it involves facing the parts of your life that may have been hurt, overlooked, or minimized. You must confront the ways in which the narcissist's influence shaped your decisions, your self-perception, and your relationships. This confrontation is not meant to induce guilt or self-blame. Rather, it is an acknowledgement, a recognition that these influences existed and that from this moment forward, they no longer have authority over your story. It is the beginning of rewriting the narrative in your own voice, grounded in your truth and your integrity. Reclaiming your narrative also involves integrating your experiences into a broader understanding of yourself. It is not about denying the pain or pretending the past didn't happen. It is about weaving those experiences into the fabric of your life in a way that empowers rather than diminishes you. Each betrayal, each act of manipulation, becomes a chapter that informs your resilience, your wisdom, and your capacity for self-compassion. By integrating the past without being defined by it, you reclaim ownership over your emotional and psychological landscape. Language matters in this reclamation. The words you use to describe your experiences shape your perception of them. Instead of describing yourself as broken or damaged by the narcissist's actions, choose words that reflect resilience, growth, and strength. Instead of framing your experiences in terms of what you lost, consider what you gained in clarity, insight, and awareness. The language you use becomes a tool for rewriting the narrative, for reframing your story in a way that aligns with your truth, rather than the distortions of manipulation. Reclaiming your narrative is also about asserting boundaries in the external world. The stories others tell about you, friends, family, colleagues, may have been influenced by the narcissist's attempts to control perception. It is your responsibility to define the truth, to communicate your experiences when necessary, and to protect your story from further distortion. This does not mean confrontation or aggression. It means clarity, consistency, and courage in asserting what is real and what belongs to you. In doing so, you reclaim the authority to interpret your own life. Another critical aspect of reclaiming your narrative is reclaiming agency. For too long, the narcissist has attempted to direct the course of your life, influencing your decisions, emotions, and goals. By taking ownership of your story, you also reclaim ownership of your choices. You no longer operate under the illusion that someone else's approval or validation is required to determine your path. Each decision you make, grounded in self-awareness and authenticity, is an affirmation that your life is yours. This agency is both empowering and transformative, allowing you to live fully in alignment with your values, rather than in reaction to another's manipulations. Reclaiming your narrative is a process, not a moment. It unfolds gradually as you reflect on your experiences, validate your emotions, and integrate lessons learned. It requires patience, self-compassion, and persistence. There may be days when old doubts resurface, when the narratives you are trying to rewrite feel fragile or uncertain. This is natural. Healing and reclamation are rarely linear. Each step forward, however small, reinforces your authority over your story, your mind, and your emotional world. The deeper power of reclaiming your narrative lies in its permanence. The narcissist may continue to exert influence externally, attempting to manipulate perception or control outcomes, but they cannot erase your story once it is reclaimed. Once you have acknowledged the truth, integrated the lessons, and asserted your ownership of your life, your narrative exists independently of their distortions. It becomes an enduring testament to your resilience, clarity, and humanity. Reclaiming your narrative also transforms how you relate to others. With clarity about your own story, you are less susceptible to manipulation in the future. You recognize patterns of control, deception, and projection, not as a source of fear or anxiety, but as signals to assert boundaries and protect your integrity. Your relationships become grounded in authenticity rather than obligation, in mutual respect rather than manipulation. This clarity reinforces the freedom you have claimed and strengthens the foundation of your life moving forward. Finally, reclaiming your narrative is deeply empowering because it restores coherence to your identity. The narcissist's actions may have fragmented your sense of self, leaving you questioning who you are, what you believe, and what you deserve. By rewriting your story, you restore unity to your experience. You reclaim your voice, your values, and your vision for the future. You are no longer a character in someone else's drama. You are the author, the witness, and the protagonist of your own life. In reclaiming your narrative, you also send a quiet, powerful message to the narcissist and to the world. Your story belongs to you. It is grounded in truth, lived in integrity, and impossible to manipulate. Your life is no longer subject to distortion, denial, or control. You have reclaimed the ultimate authority over your mind, your emotions, and your destiny. Your story is yours, and no one else holds the pen. Once you have acknowledged the hurt, seen through the illusions, recognized the weight of their actions, embraced your growth, broken free mentally and emotionally, and reclaimed your narrative, you arrive at the final and most liberating truth: living beyond their shadows. This is the stage where the past no longer dictates the present, where the echoes of manipulation, control, and betrayal no longer hold sway over your choices, your emotions, or your sense of self. To live beyond their shadows is to step fully into your life, unbound, unafraid, and unshakable. Living beyond the shadows begins with presence. It is a deliberate act of engaging with life fully, rather than allowing the past to dictate your reactions. When we have been touched by narcissistic manipulation, there is a natural tendency to remain vigilant, to anticipate harm, and to measure every interaction for potential threat. This hyper-awareness, while understandable, keeps us tethered to the narcissist's influence long after they are gone. To live beyond the shadows, you must cultivate the ability to inhabit the present, to experience life on its own terms, rather than through the lens of fear or anticipation shaped by someone else. Presence is not passive. It is active engagement with reality, grounded in clarity and self-trust. Another key aspect of living beyond their shadows is joy. The narcissist often seeks to diminish your capacity for genuine happiness, to create a sense of insufficiency, or to foster dependence on their approval. Reclaiming joy is a quiet but profound act of rebellion, and against that influence, it can be found in simple moments: a walk in the sunlight, a heartfelt conversation, a creative endeavor, or the quiet satisfaction of achieving a goal. Joy, once denied, becomes a declaration that your life is not defined by the deprivation or manipulation you endured. Every smile, every laugh, every moment of engagement with what truly nourishes your spirit is a victory over the shadows they tried to cast. Freedom is inseparable from authenticity. To live beyond the shadows means to align your life with your values, your passions, and your truth. This may require difficult decisions, letting go of relationships that are still entangled in the past, pursuing paths that others may not understand, or embracing parts of yourself that were previously suppressed. Authenticity is a commitment to yourself, an acknowledgement that your life belongs to you and that no one else has the authority to dictate its direction. Each act of authenticity strengthens your foundation, making it harder for past manipulation to infiltrate your present. Living beyond the shadows also involves resilience. Even as you reclaim your life, moments of doubt or intrusion from the past may arise. Memories, triggers, or encounters with people connected to your former experience can temporarily stir fear, anger, or sadness. Resilience is the ability to acknowledge these emotions without allowing them to control your actions or define your reality. It is the capacity to respond consciously rather than react reflexively. Each time you navigate these challenges with awareness and strength, you reinforce the autonomy you have fought to regain. Empowerment grows exponentially in this stage of life. When you step beyond the shadows, you realize that the narcissist's influence has limits. They cannot dictate your future, erase your achievements, or determine your self-worth. Every decision you make, every boundary you enforce, and every act of self-care is an assertion of personal sovereignty. Empowerment in this sense is quiet, enduring, and unassailable. It does not require validation from others, nor does it seek to inflict punishment. It simply exists as a natural consequence of reclaiming your mind, heart, and life. Living beyond the shadows also allows for deeper relationships. When your life is no longer governed by fear or manipulation, your capacity to connect authentically expands. You can engage with others without ulterior motives, without anxiety, and without the need to anticipate deception. This freedom enriches both your own life and the lives of those around you. Authentic connections, built on trust and mutual respect, become possible precisely because you have reclaimed your internal clarity and emotional integrity. There is also a profound spiritual dimension to living beyond the shadows. Liberation is not only about mental or emotional freedom. It is about reclaiming your inner light, the part of yourself that thrives on curiosity, love, creativity, and hope. Creativity and hope. The narcissist may have attempted to suppress this light, but it cannot be extinguished. Each moment in which you honor your curiosity, pursue your passions, or act in alignment with your conscience is an affirmation that the shadows do not define you. Life, when fully embraced, is richer, more meaningful, and more resonant, precisely because it is lived from this liberated place. Living beyond the shadows requires courage, because it is an ongoing process. Even after reclaiming your narrative and asserting your independence, moments of uncertainty will arise. Old fears, lingering doubts, and reminders of past harm may attempt to pull you back into patterns of self-doubt or hypervigilance. Courage, in this context, is the willingness to face these moments with awareness, to choose freedom over reaction, and to continue walking the path of authenticity. Despite discomfort or uncertainty, every step taken in the spirit is a testament to the resilience and integrity you have cultivated. Another essential element is purpose. To live beyond the shadows is to infuse your life with meaning that is yours alone. Purpose may take many forms: creative expression, helping others, personal growth, or the pursuit of knowledge and understanding. When you operate from a sense of purpose, rather than obligation or fear, you are no longer tethered to the narcissist's influence. Purpose becomes both a compass and a shield, It guides your decisions, affirms your values, and reinforces the strength you have fought to regain. Finally, living beyond the shadows allows you to embrace your own evolution. Life becomes an ongoing journey of growth, exploration, and self-discovery. The past, including the narcissist influence, is acknowledged, but no longer dominant. Each day offers an opportunity to act from clarity, to nurture your well-being, and to expand the boundaries of your potential. In this state, the shadows that once loomed large are reduced to mere echoes, reminders of survival, strength, and the wisdom gained from overcoming. This stage of liberation is the culmination of all the previous steps. The hurt has been acknowledged, the illusions pierced, the weight of their actions understood, your growth established, mental and emotional freedom claimed, and your narrative reclaimed. Living beyond the shadows is the visible, tangible, and internal proof of your resilience. It is the place where you realize that fee is not defined by what was done to you, but by how you choose to live after it. The narcissist may have left scars, but those scars do not dictate your story. They are reminders of your survival and the courage it took to reclaim your life. To live beyond their shadows is to exist in full alignment with your truth, to engage with the world from a place of integrity, and to cultivate joy, purpose, and resilience. It is the ultimate declaration that your life is yours, that your mind is yours, and that your heart is yours. In this space, you no longer measure your worth by the distortions. In this space, you no longer bend to the whims of manipulation. You are free. The shadows may have followed you for a time, but your light now walks unchained.